Hey guys, welcome back to the Readers. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is an Entitled People story. I've lived on my 10-acre property for almost 15 years now. It's not a massive ranch by any means, but it's enough space for my small stable of 3 horses that I've raised and trained myself. They're my pride and joy. Whiskey, a chestnut quarter-horse gelding, Luna, a dapple-gray Andalusian mare, and Rocket, a young black thoroughbred that I rescued 2 years ago after he was deemed too difficult by his previous owners. I love these horses like they're my children. I spend hours each day caring for them, training them, and making sure they have everything they need. Anyone who knows anything about horses understands that they're not just lawn ornaments. They require constant care, attention, and a significant financial investment. Our little slice of heaven sits at the edge of an expanding suburb. When I first moved here, my property was surrounded by other farms and rural homesteads. But over the years, developers bought up the surrounding land and built cookie-cutter houses filled with city folks looking for a country experience without actually wanting to live the country lifestyle. That's how I ended up with Karen as my neighbor 6 months ago. From the day she moved in with her husband and 2 children, a boy around 10 and a girl who looked about 8, I could tell she was going to be trouble. The first time we met was when she marched up to my fence line as I was feeding the horses. "Those are beautiful animals," she said, not bothering to introduce herself. "My kids would love to ride them sometime." I smiled politely and explained that my horses weren't available for neighborhood children to ride. "They're not beginner-friendly horses," I told her. "They require experienced handlers." Karen's smile tightened. "Well, my kids took a pony ride at the state fair last year, so they know what they're doing. Besides, it would be a nice neighborly gesture to let them ride occasionally." I was a bit taken aback by her boldness, but stayed firm. "I'm sorry, but no. These horses are valuable animals, and horseback riding can be dangerous without proper training. I can recommend some local stables that offer lessons if your kids are interested." She huffed and muttered something about selfish neighbors before walking away. I figured that was the end of it. Boy, was I wrong. About a week later, I came home from grocery shopping to find Karen's son sitting on Whiskey's back in my paddock. Karen stood outside the fence, phone in hand, taking pictures. I nearly had a heart attack. Whiskey is generally even-tempered, but he can get spooked easily, and the boy wasn't wearing a helmet or any safety gear. I immediately parked my truck and ran over, trying to stay calm so I wouldn't startle the horse. "What do you think you're doing?" I demanded, entering the paddock and carefully approaching Whiskey. Karen beamed at me. "Oh, we were just letting Tyler get acquainted with the horses. He's a natural, don't you think?" I gently took Whiskey's halter and helped the boy down. "You are trespassing on my property and putting your child in serious danger," I said, struggling to keep my voice level. "These are not petting zoo animals. If he had fallen, he could have been seriously injured or worse." Karen rolled her eyes. "Don't be so dramatic. He was fine. Whiskey is such a gentle soul." The fact that she knew my horse's name made it clear she'd been on my property before. "How did you get in here?" I asked. "The gate was open," she lied. "I always lock my gates, and I could see that they had climbed over the fence based on the fresh scuff marks." "Listen carefully," I said, looking her straight in the eyes. "You and your children are not welcome on my property without my permission. My horses are not community property. If I catch you trespassing again, I will call the police. Do you understand?" Karen seemed shocked that I wasn't playing along with her entitlement. She grabbed her son's hand and stormed off, muttering about how I was overreacting and being ridiculous. I immediately went to check on all 3 horses, making sure they weren't injured or stressed. Thankfully, they seemed okay, but I was furious. I installed additional locks on all my gates and put up more no trespassing signs around the property perimeter. I also set up some trail cameras near the paddocks just in case. For a few weeks, things were quiet, and I thought maybe Karen had gotten the message. Then one Saturday afternoon, I heard unfamiliar voices from the barn while I was working in my vegetable garden. I quietly walked over and found both of Karen's kids in Luna's stall, trying to put a bridle on her. Luna was backing into the corner, clearly uncomfortable with these strangers manhandling her. "Stop!" I shouted, startling everyone. "Get away from my horse right now!" The kids jumped and looked guilty, but didn't move away from Luna. "Our mom said it's okay," the girl said defiantly. "She said you're just being selfish with your horses and that neighbors should share." I was livid. I carefully entered the stall, removed the poorly fitted bridle from Luna's head, and then escorted the children out of my barn. "Where's your mother?" I asked. "At home," the boy answered. "She said we could come play with the horses while she made lunch." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This woman had sent her children, unsupervised, to trespass on my property and mess with 1,000-pound animals they had no experience handling. The level of irresponsibility was staggering. "Come with me," I said, and walked them back to their house. I knocked firmly on Karen's door, a child on either side of me. Karen opened the door with a look of surprise that quickly turned to annoyance. "Why did you bring them back? They were having fun." "Your children were trespassing on my property and attempting to bridle one of my horses without supervision or permission," I said. "Do you have any idea how dangerous that is? They could have been seriously injured or killed," Karen scoffed. "Don't be so dramatic. They were just playing." "Horses are not toys," I snapped. "They are large, powerful animals that require respect and proper handling. Your children have neither the experience nor the permission to be anywhere near my horses." "Well, maybe if you weren't so stingy and actually let them ride properly, they wouldn't have to sneak over," she countered, as if this was somehow my fault. I took a deep breath. "This is your final warning. If I catch your children on my property again, I will call the police and report you for child endangerment and trespassing. Do I make myself clear?" Karen's face turned red. "Are you threatening me?" "I'm informing you of the consequences of your actions," I replied coldly. "Keep your kids off my property." I walked away, fuming. When I got home, I immediately called a fencing contractor to get an estimate on raising the height of my fence along the property line we shared with Karen. It would be expensive, but apparently necessary. The next day, I caught the kids again, this time on my security camera while I was at work. I called the police and showed them the footage when they arrived. They went to speak with Karen, and I hoped that an official warning would finally get through to her. It didn't. 3 days later, I came home early from work feeling under the weather, only to find Karen herself in my paddock with both children. She was actually sitting on Rocket's back while her daughter held the lead rope and her son was climbing up to sit behind her. Rocket is my most temperamental horse. He has a history of abuse and can be unpredictable around strangers. My heart nearly stopped as I envisioned the disaster that could unfold at any moment. I honked my horn loudly as I pulled in, hoping to alert them to my presence without startling Rocket too much. Karen's head whipped around, and I could see the guilty expression on her face. She quickly slid off Rocket's back, helped her son down, and tried to hustle the kids toward the fence. I was out of my truck in seconds. "Stop right there!" I yelled. Karen froze, then put on a fake smile. "Oh, you're home early. We were just admiring your beautiful horses." "From on top of Rocket's back?" I asked incredulously. "After I've repeatedly told you to stay away from my animals? After the police warned you about trespassing?" "The children love the horses," she said, as if that explained everything. "And they've been riding just fine all week while you're at work. Nothing bad has happened, so I don't see what the big deal is." My blood ran cold. All week? They'd been riding my horses every day while I was at work? I pulled out my phone. "I'm calling the police. This ends now." "Wait!" Karen held up her hands. "There's no need to be nasty about this. We're neighbors. We should be helping each other out." "Helping each other out?" I repeated. "You're trespassing on my property and risking your children's safety with animals you know nothing about. How exactly is that helping each other out?" Karen had the audacity to roll her eyes. "If you're going to be like that, fine. We're leaving. Come on, kids." As they skulked away, I checked on Rocket, who thankfully seemed okay, if a bit agitated. I noticed some unfamiliar tack on the ground nearby, a cheap, ill-fitting saddle that I certainly didn't own. They had not only been riding my horses, but bringing their own equipment to do so. I was beyond furious. I called the police again and showed them my security footage, which had captured Karen and her kids riding my horses multiple times over the past week. The officer was sympathetic and filed a formal report, but said that since there wasn't any obvious damage to my property or animals, it would likely be treated as a simple trespassing case if I wanted to press charges. That's when I had my idea. The next morning, I created an official-looking invoice on my computer. I detailed charges for private equestrian lessons for 3 students, Karen and her 2 children, listing specific dates and times drawn from my security footage. I included charges for equipment rental, facility usage fee, and expert instruction, coming to a total of $1,000, which was actually quite reasonable considering professional riding lessons in our area run $75 to $100 per hour per person. I printed the invoice on nice paper, put it in an envelope with my return address neatly printed in the corner, and hand-delivered it to Karen's mailbox. The next day, Karen came pounding on my door, invoice clutched in her hand, face red with anger. "What the hell is this?" she demanded when I opened the door. I smiled pleasantly. "That's an invoice for the riding lessons you and your children have been taking with my horses." "We never asked for lessons," she sputtered. "No, but you helped yourselves to them anyway," I replied calmly. "You've been using my valuable horses, my property, and my equipment without permission. Since you clearly believe you're entitled to these things, I'm simply charging you for them." "This is ridiculous! I'm not paying this!" she exclaimed. That's your choice, I said with a shrug. But I have extensive video evidence of you and your children trespassing and riding my horses without permission. I can either send this bill to collections, or I can press criminal charges for trespassing and animal endangerment. Your call? Karen's mouth opened and closed like a fish. You wouldn't dare. Try me, I said, all pleasantness gone from my voice. You've repeatedly ignored my warnings, disrespected my property rights, and put your children in danger. Actions have consequences, Karen. She stormed off, claiming she would talk to her lawyer. I didn't hear from her for 2 weeks, and blissfully, there were no more incidents of trespassing. Then I received a letter from her lawyer claiming my invoice was fraudulent and demanding I cease harassing his client. I responded by sending him copies of my security footage, the police reports, and a detailed timeline of Karen's trespassing incidents. I never heard back from the lawyer, but Karen made a point of giving me dirty looks whenever we crossed paths. She also started telling neighbors that I was trying to extort money from her, which backfired when I calmly showed them the evidence as well. After 30 days, I sent Karen a polite reminder that her invoice was past due. After 60 days, I sent a final notice informing her that the matter would be referred to small claims court if payment wasn't received within 10 business days. She ignored it, of course, so I filed in small claims court. The filing fee was only $75, and I had all my documentation in order. I was assigned a court date about 6 weeks out. Karen seemed shocked when she was served with the small claims papers. She apparently hadn't believed I would actually follow through. The day before our court date, she showed up at my door, offering to pay $200 if I would drop the case. The invoice is for $1,000, I said firmly, plus the $75 filing fee and an additional $100 late fee as specified in the payment terms. We'll let the judge decide tomorrow. She called me several creative names before storming off. In court the next day, I presented my case calmly and factually. I showed the judge my security footage, the police reports, and the numerous no trespassing signs on my property. I explained the danger Karen had put herself and her children in by handling horses they weren't trained to ride, and I provided documentation of the market rate for riding lessons in our area to show that my invoice was reasonable. Karen's defense was basically that I was being petty and vindictive, that neighbors should help each other, and that her kids just wanted to pet the nice horses. She claimed she thought I was just being difficult and didn't really mean my prohibition against riding the horses. The judge wasn't impressed. He ruled entirely in my favor, ordering Karen to pay the original $1,000, plus my filing fee, plus court costs. He also lectured her about respecting other people's property and the severity of putting her children in dangerous situations without proper supervision or training. Ma'am, the judge said, if one of your children had been injured while trespassing on the plaintiff's property and riding those horses without permission or proper safety equipment, you could be facing much more serious charges than the cost of riding lessons. Consider yourself fortunate that all you're paying for is the privilege you already took. Karen was furious but had no choice but to comply with the court order. She wrote me a check right there in the courthouse, practically throwing it at me before storming out. The best part, when we got outside, she threatened that I hadn't heard the last of this. Unfortunately for her, the bailiff overheard and reminded her that threatening someone after a court judgment could be considered harassment and contempt of court. She shut up pretty quickly after that. It's been 2 months since the court case, and I haven't seen Karen or her kids anywhere near my property. I used the money to upgrade my security system and install a much taller fence along our shared property line. Some of the neighbors think I was too harsh, that I should have just let the kids enjoy the horses. But anyone who actually owns horses understands completely. These are living creatures, not playground equipment, and Karen's entitlement could have resulted in serious injury to her children or my beloved animals. The icing on the cake came last week when I saw Karen's kids at the local ice cream shop with their father, not Karen. We made eye contact and I was ready for some nasty comments, but instead he approached me and apologized. I want you to know I had no idea what was going on, he said quietly. I'm so sorry for what my wife and kids put you through. I've enrolled them in proper riding lessons at the stable in town so they can learn to respect horses and the people who own them. I thanked him for the apology and for taking steps to educate his children properly. It was a surprisingly positive end to an infuriating situation. As for Karen, she still glares at me whenever we cross paths, but she stays far away from my property. Lesson learned, I hope. Though with entitled people, you never can tell. At least my horses are safe now, and that's what matters most to me. Edit. Wow, this blew up overnight. Thanks for all the supportive comments. To answer some common questions. 1. Yes, I did check my homeowner's insurance after this incident and increased my liability coverage. Even though the kids were trespassing, in today's lawsuit-happy world, you can never be too careful. 2. Several people asked why I didn't press criminal charges. I considered it, but the reality is that the justice system in our county is overloaded, and trespassing often gets treated as a minor offense with minimal consequences. I felt the financial penalty would make a bigger impression. 3. For those asking about the horses, they're all doing fine. Rocket was a bit skittish for a while after the incidents, but he's back to his normal self now. I've been working with him daily to restore his confidence. 4. And yes, I do sometimes allow neighborhood children to meet the horses under my supervision if their parents ask politely and the kids follow all safety rules. I'm not a monster. I just demand respect for my animals and property. The next one is an entitled people story. On Friday, I took my girlfriend, her daughter, who is a senior in high school, and her daughter's boyfriend, to go see Blue Man Group. I invited girlfriend's daughter because she's a theater kid and she wanted to bring her boyfriend so it wouldn't be weird. Adding more teenagers to a situation kind of guarantees weird will happen, but with age comes wisdom, and arguing with a teenager when her mom is right there seems like a no-win proposition. So boyfriend got a free ticket and tagged along. We all load up into my car and drive to the show. It's a good show. We all enjoyed ourselves, and I went home after dropping everyone off. Called it a successful mission. Everyone was happy. I went to bed content and woke up to the worst kind of morning. My dog needed grooming. This is a very traumatic process for both of us, but man, you could tell he walked in the room because the smell just punched you square in the face. It was necessary. The process starts by drugging him with breakfast. It was vet-prescribed anti-anxiety meds. The drugging is necessary because at one point when I reclaimed him from that place of horrors, the groomer said he was a little anxious. Read, a gigantic pain in the ass. So, drugs. Because if you're going to leave your fur baby with someone for hours, best to be as accommodating as possible, and it's kind of hard to be a pain in the ass when you're high as a kite. Regrettably, at this point, the jig is up once he's drugged, because he knows he gets drugged before he gets groomed. There is much wailing and gnashing of teeth. He refuses to get out of the car, and forgets how to legs once he's pried out of the car. Saturday was no different. He was feeling particularly uncooperative too. Job got done though. Few hours later, I reclaimed him. He forgave me eventually. Earlier today, I got a phone call from my girlfriend, and she was already wheezing. Once it was understood this was mirth and not sobbing, I got the tea. All of this is secondhand. I have no idea how fraud prevention or finance in general work. At some point in the past, the boyfriend or the boyfriend's parents had their card details stolen, which sucks. However, the money that had been stolen was returned. Because the purchases made weren't legitimate, boyfriend learned the wrong lesson from that particular sequence of events. He thought if he made a bunch of purchases and lost the card, he'd get all the things he wanted for free. So, boyfriend, thinking he was being clever, anonymously gifted a bunch of expensive things he thought his girlfriend might like and had them shipped to her house. He then lost his card in the back seat of my car. Whether that was to implicate me or what, I have no idea. Boyfriend claimed that his card had been lost or stolen and a bunch of purchases had been made with it after it had been lost. Right after he got confirmation, the package was delivered. Whoever he claimed this to investigated and found a bunch of anonymous purchases being shipped to a location he'd shipped numerous things to before, just with her name or his on them, not anonymous. Not being stupid, said financial institution promptly said, "Nuh-uh. I am unsure if boyfriend was already in trouble or what, but he really was after what happened next. Remember how my dog and I had an impromptu wrestling match to get him into the place where I outsource my bath guilt? Yeah, card got knocked out of my car and onto the ground. I didn't notice because I was busy trying to extricate a very unhappy and already kind of stoned 38 pounds canine without breaking anything." Said previously ejected card had been picked up by someone and used. A lot, in a lot of places. Because there was already a very recent lost or stolen card that was firmly nuh-ud, apparently it's going to be a lot harder to get the funds back for the actual bogus charges. Boyfriend was apparently very upset with this sequence of events. He was properly devastated when my girlfriend's daughter dumped his ass. I'd like to think she dumped him because he'd tried to throw me under the bus. I'm actually almost positive she dumped his ass because of his fraudulent little care package. Said package was delivered to her father's house, with current resident as the intended recipient, from Anonymous. It included a big bottle of fragrance that girlfriend's daughter likes to wear, and some lingerie in her size, along with several other very expensive things, which were remote-controlled and anatomically unlikely. Girlfriend's ex-husband found this hilarious and hasn't stopped giving his daughter a hard time about it. She got pissed about the hard time her father was giving her and called her mom to complain. Her mom, being the sympathetic sort she is, consoled her with, "Well, we knew he was very pretty and pretty dumb. What did you expect?" The next one is a malicious compliances story. I've been working on IT for around 26 years now. different companies, but you see quite a bit of MC on the IT world. Back in 2005, 06, I worked for a telephone company, a huge one, that had the typical Jira-like bug reporting tool for one of its most complicated and convoluted softwares. The software was so complex, so legacy, that even the development team in-house was afraid to do changes in it. Some updates in the past did backfire spectacularly more than once, so even the tiniest update to that software had to take weeks of analysis before taking place. In that dev team worked 3 of my friends from college. I worked on another one that had an easier life. One of my guys at that team was Bedu. To portrait Bedu accurately, imagine that guy that's always playing innocent pranks, that you never know if he's for real when he's talking because he's always saying the most shocking things just for the LOL, knows a little bit of magic, uses it to prank, loves football, soccer as well. He used to be good at his job, but he's also a quite bit tired of it, procrastinating, and generally not putting too much effort on it. The fact that he's part of that software dev team doesn't help. It's not a fast-paced environment, and people gets bored by the inaction. So, since he's bored, he plays pranks, like connecting a second wireless mouse controller to the PC of a colleague to randomly move the mouse and have him call tech support because his mouse misbehaves, but do absolutely nothing with the mouse when tech support comes. The guy being the target of the prank ended up calling tech support 4 times before being told what was going on. The team once a week also books a windowless meeting room for an hour, so 3 of them can take a nap while the 4th one guards against someone finding out. Who's the guard rotates each week. The requests for update Bedu gets are almost always something in this style. This report indicates that X value is 25 when it should be 27. Please fix. Each request typically comes from a different area, but each area sends a couple of requests probably once a month. But Bedu knows that the algorithm doing that calculation is extremely complex. Reports are baked on a monthly basis on batch processes that can take hours. Testing this is extremely painful also. So he updates the end value on the report where it was 25, now is 27, easy peasy. See you next month. He gets probably like 10, 15 of these requests per day. Bedu updates the bug tool ticket stating on the comment field something like end value verified and corrected and moves on. New boss comes to that dev team from another team on the company. He's well known around the company as being quite dense. He instantly clashes with the team. He thinks quantity equals quality and loves to look into numbers. He comes from the database world, so he's constantly using queries to gather information. He also thinks that each ticket solved is because the underlying condition is being solved. He knows nothing about the complexity of the system. He just thinks that the team is really good at identifying causes and solving them fast. Glorified pencil pusher. He gathers the team and says that he did a query and found out that the comments being put into the bug tool are really short, like less than 50 characters long. And that is not enough to explain what has been done to solve the incident. The whole team explains that what's being put into the comment field is more than enough. He says that comments should at least have 1,000 characters. It's the minimum he'll accept. He says that having comments with less than 1,000 characters will impact his valuation of the work being done. Bedu, being the devious character he is, decides to complain. Especially since he knows that boss would never open the bug tool. He loves his databases. First ticket comes in, this value is this, should be that. He updates value, writes the same comment he always does, end value verified and corrected, and then, taking advantage on the fact that the comment field has format capabilities, YSI wig type of editor. Copies and pastes the chronicle from the latest football match into the field, changes the color to white and the font size to 1 so it can't be seen against the background on the tool, and closes the ticket. If you're the original ticket poster, that comment field is read only, so unless someone selects and highlights the comment, they won't know that something else is there. Next ticket comes, does the same but writes a rant about some stupid thing. Then on the next ticket he just keeps pushing random keys in the spacebar until the character counter reaches 1,000. He gets bored of doing this, so he becomes more ingenious and inventive by the ticket. Somewhere hidden in that bug tool comment system, a complete original Bedu novel separated in small chapters ends up being written that Noon knows about, outside of us few that have lunch with Bedu and the team. Boss comes a month after and says to Bedu, I've noticed that the size of your comments has gone up last month. You're averaging well over 1,000 characters per ticket. Keep it up. Bedu, plus all my other friends and myself, left the company to greener pastures a year later. I still talk daily with Bedu and people from that team. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'll see you again.